So that's the situation that we don't want to get into. We want to make sure, hey, like that's when appropriate shelf life labeling on these packages becomes extremely critical. Like, do your shelf life studies and understand, okay, if I use this composition on this kind of product, this is my expiry date. Make sure that's clear on the labels.
Hello, me folks. Welcome back to the MeatsPad podcast. My name is Nair, and I'm your host today. I'm very excited to have someone that I reached out maybe like a couple years ago, and we were discussing about a podcast. We weren't sure about a topic, and then we visited, I think, last RMC, and like we have to do something. And looking back at some of the one of my passions is color, and I did a little bit of work on that in my PhD, and I do a lot of dissemination and trying to help processors understanding color and what it's behind that, and to extend the shelf life or color life, like Dr. Hunt like to say. And today with us, we welcome Dr. Mahesh Nair, associate professor from Colorado State University, to talk about MAP and other alternatives in packaging in the meat industry. Welcome, Dr. Nair. How you doing?
Doing good. Thank you, Francisco. Thanks for the invite. I know we have tried to schedule this a couple of times, and finally the time worked out.
Yes, and we were like before recording, we're talking. We visited with Dr. Han maybe like last year, or I can't remember when it was, but I think it was 2 years ago when we visited with Dr. Han, and we talked about color, but we didn't go very in depth about uh map. So I think we mentioned it briefly, and we're talking about mostly in the early 2000s. A lot of work was done by that group, with Dr. Han was leading K-State, and I think it's a good to understand what is modified atmosphere packaging, what are some alternatives. And I think we can start from there. If you will, tell us a little bit about this technology.
Yeah. And again, before we go there, I want to make sure I give a shout out to Dr. Hunt, because he is the color guru in the US. In fact, when I was looking for a graduate position, Dr. Hunt was one of the first persons I reached out to. This was way back in 2010. I'm originally from India, so when I was looking for graduate positions, I looked at Dr. Hunt's research, and the things he was doing sounded very cool to me. So I reached out to him in 2010. Actually, in 2009, I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'm interested in being a graduate student with you. That time he was getting ready to retire, so he didn't have an open position with him. So he directed me to Dr. Suman at University of Kentucky. So that's where I did my grad study. So from that point, I considered Dr. Hunter as a mentor for me, and he has been extremely kind to me and extremely uh, willing to educate me on things. Whenever I have a questions, even now, I try to go get a hold of Dr. Hunt and say, hey, I have this question. Am I thinking about this correctly? So extremely grateful to him as a mentor. Um, Going back to your question on color, people consider color as the one of the most important things when you're making purchasing decisions, right? If it looks good, you purchase it. If it
Yeah.
doesn't, people say, yeah, I don't know. There is a little bit of a consumer negative perception on that. So ways to improve color, that's one of my focus areas on research, is what can we do to improve color, whether it can be packaging or whether it can be antioxidants, whether it can be antimicrobial, or whether it can be consumer education. There are different ways you can approach that. And one of the things you mentioned was modified atmosphere packaging. We typically abbreviate that as MAP. Like we meet science folks are very simple minded. We like simple definitions. Modified atmosphere packaging means we are modifying the atmosphere in which that meat is held. To simply put, that's what modified atmosphere packaging or MAP means. Um, how do we do that? It's typically you try to take out the air or the ambient atmosphere that's present in the package and try to replace that with your gases of choice. And those gases are chosen because they have typical properties. And we can get into that later in the discussion. But that's what we are doing is we're taking out the air, replacing it with your gas composition of choice. And then we're sealing it with a tight film that's tray sealed that makes sure that gas composition stays the same or that gas remains in the package. So that's what modified atmospheric packaging simply, like in simple terms, means. It's widely used in the industry, like especially with case ready packaging being more popular. Like case ready means instead of traditional way of cutting meat in a store, meat is cut into consumer portion sizes in a centralized facility. That gives you a little bit more control over what kind of packaging you can use. Because traditionally, like stores don't have all the resources to do those kind of things. So, think Cryovac did a meat case study, and they mentioned recently that it's about 83% of product that's in stores now is case ready, and about 15 to 20% of that is through modified atmosphere packaging. Um, the one of the advantages of doing a case ready is like you have better process control because it's handled in a centralized location. You have better process control. You can have there is less product handling actually at a store level, so there is less worry about food safety and spoilage and things like that. The other big component, which many of these smaller stores are facing challenges, is skilled labor to cut meat in stores. So you can get rid of some of that if the meat is already coming in a pre-packaged consumer-ready form. There is greater product consistency. It gives greater market flexibility and things like that. So there is a lot of advantages for that centralized packaging. The disadvantage may be like there's more packaging material involved in some of these packages. And so there is a lot more emphasis on moving away from traditional packaging and like more biodegradable packaging and things like that.
What are some of the gas proportion or I know we kind of talk about like we can use high oxygen, low oxygen packaging. There's a carbon monoxide option that you can do to also help for the color, that color that the U.S. consumer loves, like that cherry red color. I guess if we can, maybe we can talk about what we use in the U.S., what is being used in Europe, because I know in Europe they do a little bit different when it comes to matte packaging. And I think I would love to talk to, and maybe also you're originally from India, and maybe also see like some of the perspectives, what's going on in India or other places to kind of get a global perspective, right, on this technology.
Yeah, sure. Again, like the gas composition basically depends on what you are trying to achieve from that packaging. So typically, it's a combination of four different gases. That's what, when I'm teaching a class, that's what I try to bring up to the class is, hey, here are the four gases that's typically used in matte packaging. We can use it in different combinations to come up with solutions. The primary one is oxygen. Oxygen, the reason we use oxygen is for that cherry red color you mentioned earlier, like especially if it's for beef, consumers love to see that bright cherry red color. They associate that with a high quality product. So if you're using oxygen, that gives you that ability to produce that bright cherry red color. I'm pretty sure others have covered this in your podcast before about myoglobin and chemistry and things like that. But myoglobin is the protein that is responsible for meat color. 95% of color comes through myoglobin. Like whether it's good or bad, it's myoglobin that's responsible for that. Myoglobin can attach to oxygen. It can bind to oxygen. And when it binds to oxygen, it forms a bright cherry red color. Typically, we call that as oxygenated form as oxymyoglobin. So there is oxygen attached, you call it oxymyoglobin. That's the bright cherry red color you see in there. And the discoloration happens when that gets oxidized and there is oxidation of that over time. So the idea with these packages is to actually limit the oxidation. And can we push the shelf life a little bit further? Can we get it beyond the traditional number of days that we have for a traditional packaging. So I mentioned 4 different gases. So I'm going to go back to oxygen because that's one of the primary ones that's used. And there is again advantages and disadvantages with oxygen, which we can come back to at a later point. The second one that's typically used is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide helps with the anaerobic atmosphere. It helps to slow down the bacterial growth. Okay. So if you have a high carbon dioxide atmosphere, bacteria typically doesn't like that. They tend to grow slower in those atmosphere. So you can use that to create that anaerobic atmosphere. The third one is nitrogen, but nitrogen doesn't have a functional role. It's very inert. It helps to create that anaerobic atmosphere, helps as a filler, helps to keep the package fluffed up so there is no other gas coming in there. And then the fourth one is carbon monoxide. Um, it's approved for use in US at about 0.4%. So that's the maximum you can use for carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is wonderful in its properties because, as I mentioned earlier, how oxygen binds to myoglobin and forms oxymyoglobin, carbon monoxide can bind to myoglobin and forms a pigment called as carboxymyoglobin. Very stable. It stays similar to the cherry red color that the consumers like. It stays very stable and it can last for much longer duration. Once it forms an attachment to myoglobin, it doesn't come off that easily. It stays there. So that cherry red color stays for longer duration with that. It's approved for use at 0.4%. So typically it's used in combination with other gases. So it can be either a carbon dioxide, oxygen, and nitrogen. So all of those they can be used in different combinations. But if you're using carbon monoxide, typically you go with carbon dioxide and nitrogen as a filler to get all the air out and make sure that carbon monoxide is attaching to myoglobin.
Perfect. Perfect. And maybe we can briefly talk because I know when we mentioned like in Europe, they're more used to they're more used like a low oxygen, right?
Yeah.
Environment compared to the
Uh,
US is more high oxygen.
mhm. It's the consumer preference on those, right? Like each market sets up to, hey, if this is what sells and this is what the consumers are wanting, we will set it up that way. Consumers in US actually prefer to see that bright cherry red color. So if you're using a high oxygen atmosphere, that helps with that bright cherry red color. Compared to that, in Europe, there is more acceptance for vacuum packaging. So the consumers are used to seeing that vacuum package color. It's not that bright cherry red color. It's more purplish red color and consumers are a little bit more willing to accept that. So if you're using a low oxygen atmosphere there, the advantage you get is you get more shelf life there, right? So you get more shelf life, the product can stay in the retail case for longer duration. So that helps to, okay, if the consumers are accepting of that, let's focus on the shelf life, not primarily on the color. So that helps to switch that to a lower oxygen packaging, and that helps to push the shelf life further. And I mentioned this earlier, one of the challenges with the high oxygen atmosphere is bacteria like that oxygen, so they tend to grow in that atmosphere better. And two, there is that potential for oxidation to happen. Oxidation can be proteins or lipids. It can be either fat or proteins that can get oxidized. Both of those are not great in terms of either a visual appearance or an eating quality. So the advantage with high oxygen packaging is, hey, you can push that to very bright cherry red color initially. But on the back end, you may have some issues with oxidation. So you need to make a decision on that. Hey, what am I trying to do here? Am I trying to push my product out faster, or am I trying to keep the product in the shelf for longer? With that bright cherry red color, it's very appealing to consumers. You can push that product out faster, but there might be some drawback on the oxidation component. But on the lower oxygen atmospheres, there is not that bright color. But you get a longer shelf life coming out of that. So there is that balance, and that's a business decision that people have to make, right? And again, it's dictated by consumers. The consumers are willing to buy that. That's what we're selling. If they are not willing to pay for that, that's what we are selling.
Yeah, and that's where I think I believe this is awesome, because I think those those parameters that you mentioned, I think us as industry, I think we need to communicate that those either advantages or disadvantages to the customer. And I think it's good that you're bringing this up, this balance, because I keep getting this every now and then about aging, and I think that's I think we cover a little bit about aging. Well, hold on. Before we go into aging a little bit, let's talk about, because I forgot, I had it here on my list about carbon monoxide.
Hmm.
And I think it's we have to mention, for especially for those folks that, I mean, it could be in the US or elsewhere, they're wanting to do this, to understand that carbon monoxide will help you on the color. But I mean, if it can stay and this, I remember that Dr. Han, I think on a seminar, he mentions you have to be very careful if on that percent, because you go above that percent, or I mean, the color will be right, will be good. The color will be good of the product, but if you give it, you push it out, bacteria or microbiology, the microbiological component of that may be that it's already to be spoiled, but color-wise, it looks good. So maybe you can we can do like a parenthesis and just obviously this is something that we need to discuss.
Yeah. So it's the difference between that spoilage and color, right? Typically, an average consumer uses, okay, if it looks good, it must be sound. It must be bacteriologically good, like there is no spoilage there, right? One of the challenges with carbon monoxide packaging is if you're not careful, it can push that board further, and there has been a lot of concerns about will it mask the, sorry if I can speak, will it mask the spoilage, and that could be a concern if we push the board out too much, like 6 to 7 logs of bacteria, like if it's aerobic or lactic acid bacteria, that's what we consider typically as spoiled. But that doesn't mean that once it hits 6 logs or 7 logs, it's spoiled. Typically, for again, from a research standpoint, what you consider spoilage is if there is foul odor starting to come from there, if it's slimy to touch. Okay. But in a case ready packaging, you are not getting either of those. You are not going to get that odor because we seal the package so that there is nothing coming out of the package. You are not able to touch the product, so you won't be able to feel that sliminess. So let's say if a consumer buys a product that's spoiled, like that's slimy, that has a bad odor, and that's still looking okay, it's not bad. They go home and open that, and as the product comes out, and if they touch it and it feels slimy, and if there's a foul odor coming, they feel cheated. Like, oh, they cheated me with a product. So that's the situation that we don't want to get into. We want to make sure, hey, like that's when appropriate shelf life labeling on these packages becomes extremely critical. Like, do your shelf life studies and understand, okay, if I use this composition on this kind of product, this is my expiry date. Make sure that's clear on the labels. Because once a consumer have a bad experience, they are going to get turned off
They
by
don't
that
come
product.
back.
Yeah, they won't come back. They are getting you turned off, and like this, and usually the stores are the ones who gets brunt of that. Like, yeah, I went to Walmart and Walmart sold me this product, or I went to Target and they sold me this product. So usually the stores are the ones that gets that brunt. So that will have a impact down the chain on their suppliers and their processors and all of that. So we need to be careful in setting critical boundaries and hey, here is where we can push the boat and draw a clear line saying, okay, even though there might be a possibility beyond that, do we want to take that chance? No, we don't want to have that negative experience for that consumer and draw that line clearly.
Yeah, yeah, and it's, I think I'm happy that I remember about this, because this is a very important one.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, I think there's some tables out there that I mean, they put out some general numbers like bone-in,
Mm-hmm.
boneless, subprimals, map. Like they give out some potential or estimated shelf life days, but it's good to you're gonna start doing map, and I think it's good to have a small shelf life studies where you know under your conditions in either queue floor, packaging, processing, you have your your baseline of like if you're doing a vacuum package or map packaging, that you know your baseline, right? Like that you can go out to this day. And then the other story is there's a lot of controversial on the best by date, use by, freeze by, and I think I've heard there's gonna be some changes soon on that because it's confusing for the end consumer.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see how those are going to be changed for different products because some products there's a bust by date, right? Then there is some products there is use by date. Like consumers don't distinguish the difference. If they say see a date and if it's past the date, they tend to push that product out, and that will result in a lot of food wastage. Does that mean it's gone bad? No, not necessarily. Can we guarantee the high quality of that product? Maybe not. So there is to have that distinction in the packages would be really, really interesting to see, and how that's going to change consumer perceptions of product.
Yeah, yeah. And I was gonna bring up the postmortem aging time, but I'm not sure if we can get let's just, briefly. I think for we owe it to our folks listening because it's important to point out that if you're using map, if you're going to be like just say I kill today, 2 days I come back and I start fabricating, or maybe I come in a week, but it's understanding the balance between tenderness and color, right? Because trying to get the most out of the product. We have some numbers that got to be at least 14 days of aging, either dry aging or wet aging, 21 days. In my mind, if you're gonna be doing, you have to be careful of like if you want to get your product very happy on the eating experience that you're doing map. Well, you killing today and then you packaging in 2 days and then the product is out. Well, you have to understand those limitations on color, right? And I think we can it's a good topic, and I think we can end this episode by just discussing briefly about this.
Yeah, and there is another facet to that in the sense of different muscles, which from the same animal will behave differently. If you put a tenderloin out there, in a traditional packaging, it will discolor within 3 to 4 days. Versus if you put a strip loin out there on the counter case, it will stay red for 8 to 9 days. So the same coming from the same animal, because of the differences in the muscle, there is going to be difference there. So you may not want your entire animal or all the different subprimals from the same animal to be packaged the same way. If tenderloin is having problem, you may want to consider different packaging for tenderloin versus if it's not a question of if tenderloin has problems with color stability versus strip loin, yeah, it will stay good for a reasonable time. So depending on that, you have to make that call, right? The general rule of thumb is the longer you age the muscle, you will have shorter shelf life. So if you are pushing out from like, so let's say the industry average from the last NBQA survey was about 24 days. I cannot recall the exact dates, but it's somewhere between 20 to 25 days. That's the industry average for aging. So if you are using that for every muscle, you may have some problems. The longer you push that aging, yeah, there is going to be some improvement in tenderness. That is, depending on what kind of aging you are using, there is going to be some differences in flavor. But there is going to be the flip side is you will have some compromise on the color stability. Typically, when you age longer, your color stability, the time it can remain on the retail case, is going to be lower. If you're pushing it out to 70 days and then say, okay, I need 15 days in the retail case, not going to happen. You will have much shorter shelf life. So there are studies out there that has compared it over, okay, different aging times. And then if you put in retail case, what happens? And consistently, the longer the aging, you will get shorter time in the retail case. And then one of my pet projects is comparing the difference between the muscles. Like, why is tenderloin different than why is strip loin? coming from the same animal. Yeah, there is difference in muscle fiber types and some biochemical properties, but there is difference in microgrowth on them. In some, the micro grows faster. In the other, micro grows slower. Why? Like that's a new area of research that we are actually actively pursuing as of now. And hopefully in a year or two, I'll have some more exciting updates on that.
Perfect. Yeah. If you have something sooner, we'll love to catch up in RMC or maybe next RMC. But this is awesome. This hypothesis and I think that we're getting more and more questions out of the maybe that nobody was questioning before. And we might have a lot of a lot of a lot of good data and information coming from your group very
Yeah,
soon.
we put a paper out in Meat and Muscle Biology that got just accepted, like should be coming out in the next couple of days. In a series of 5 or 6 studies they have, that's the first study out there, and we are hoping to get some more good data out of that.
Perfect. Perfect. Look forward to reading that. And yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much for your time. I think it's been fantastic and very helpful information for our community. I think we'll get more questions, I'm sure, and I'll direct them to you. I thank you. Thank you very much.
One of my favorite things to talk about is meat color. Like I can talk about meat color for as long as you want.
Yeah, well, that's good. How, I mean, I think we can wrap this up. How do you find this passion? I mean, when, I mean, how old were you? Were you in India? Were you in the US when you said, I want to spend part of my life studying meat color?
And again, it's very interesting because my background is slightly different than a typical meat science person you will see in US. I was trained as a veterinarian back in India. So, but as part of that veterinary training, you have to do both production side and the clinical side. So I got exposed to the production side. And fortunately or unfortunately, I got more attracted towards the production side. So I spent a little bit more time learning about meat color and things like that. And there is that area of how that changes, how it's getting oxidized, how it's getting oxygenated, and that fascinated me, and I wanted to learn more about that. And that's kind of how I got drawn to that area. And when I was looking at who is the best person to look at that, that's when Dr. Hunter's name popped up, and yeah, like, okay, let me reach out to him. It was I'll just cold email him, say, hey, I'm this person from India. I would like to learn more, and he was very gracious to get the connections for me. And Dr. Suman was also very gracious to getting me in and said, okay, let's do this. And I spent 7 years in Kentucky, learn a lot about meat color, and then I'm trying to continue that at CSU.
Perfect. Good story. Well, thank you, Dr. Nair, for your time again.
Sure.
We hope to see you soon in RMC. This year's gonna go fast. So
Yeah.
um,
Thanks for thanks for the time, and thanks. Hopefully, we can catch up sometime soon.
thank you. Have a good one.